The major event this week was, of course, the keynote. Apple did a keynote on Tuesday, I guess, and they put out a whole new range of products and new iPods and stuff. So that's something I'm going to talk about today. We're going to take a look at what has been, put out there, what's been new, the new Nano, the iPod Classic, the iPod Touch, and of course the iPhone. And we're going to take a look at it from a European perspective because let's face it, we're not all in the USA. We don't all have AT&T contracts, and that is for somebody like me living in Belgium a whole different ballgame as opposed to the, Native American citizen. So we're going to take a look at what Apple brought out and be a little critical about it, be a little skeptical about it, and see what's new, what's hot, and what's not from my point of view. One of the new things Apple brought out was the iPod Nano. I've seen pictures on Dig and I thought like, well, if it's going to look like that, it's going to look like a fat Nano or a small iPod. I kind of like that, and it actually did. The new design of the Nano is pretty cute. It's like a tiny iPod, and I really like that. I didn't like the classic model. I didn't like the rectangle. I always thought if you put it in your pocket and you bend over or something, you might just accidentally break it. But Apple stuff, sturdy stuff, that won't really happen. But the new Nano is amazingly better in design, according to my small opinion. But one of the big things that's coming out, of course, is that it now supports video. Amazing. I mean, for 150 euros, you get the 4GB model. For 200 euros, you get the 8GB model. And not only can you do pictures on it, you can actually do video on it. Great. It's a very cheap device, and it gives you the ability to watch video through a screen that's about this big. How are you going to do that? How are you going to watch Lord of the Rings right there on a screen that's like that big? I don't know, but for YouTube videos and stuff, it's pretty cool. The price is pretty right. I mean, if I were a Creative Labs shareholder, I would sell my stock off because I don't think they have a product that is quite up to this. The memory size is, well, it's okay, 4GB, and put a lot of videos on there. I don't think you'll have a lot of space for music, but the Nano is kind of the in-between model. Pretty cool, pretty nifty colors, and the Nano was probably one of the major things that came out that I thought that were pretty interesting. Just a shame about the small screen, but you can't have them all. One of the other products that was, of course, brought out was the iPod, what we can now call the iPod Classic, or the Classic iPod Video. I own a 5G iPod Video, 30 gig, and I'm very, very pleased with it. Battery life's good, screen's great, it scratches easily, but you should take your precautions. That's about it. I've owned mine for a year now. And they've upgraded the model, looking at 250 euros for the 80GB model, and 350 euros for the 160 gigabyte model. 160 gigabytes. What are you going to do with that? I mean, you're going to load up your iTunes library, leave, and never return to sync again. 160 gig. Whoa. They, of course, both have a hard drive inside them. That accounts for the larger storage space, and they are still pretty good looking, and I think the price point's pretty good. I mean, 80 gig, 250 euros, that's pretty sharp. I wouldn't pay 350 euros for a 160 gig MP3 player, unless you are like, what's the guy's name that went missing? The world champion dude. If you decide to crash your plane and get stuck in the desert for 6 months or something, if he's still alive, well, no matter. Then you need 160 gig, but I've got 30 gig. I don't listen to half the stuff that's on there. But still, I mean, they're a pretty nice price. They're pretty good looking. They did a new interface on it and cover flow and stuff like that. That's not really new because you don't look at the screen a lot. You don't go browsing through your interface and stuff. You just use it. But at that price, okay, pretty good product. One of the cool things to come out of this keynote, I think, is the iPod Touch. I mean, it's like an iPhone without the phone. But for the rest, it has the big screen, widescreen iPod. It has Wi-Fi, which is very cool. And it has a very good price tag. $2.99 for the 4 GB version, or no, sorry, $2.99 for the 8 GB version and $3.99 for the 16 GB version is a pretty good price. But I do have my concerns. I mean, you have the big screen, you have the Wi-Fi. This thing's going to suck batteries. Of course, it has some upsides. You can actually use it to sync your music. You can access that iTunes Music Store, but I don't think that's very important. You just take a look at the content. But you have this kind of love child between a PDA on one side and between a MP3 player on the other side. So that's pretty cool. It's a combination that hasn't been made before. With the iPhone, you have the combination of an iPod and a phone. But with the, if you take a look at the iPod Touch, it's actually a PDA and an iPod together. So if you can actually get software that would sync up your, let's say, Gmail calendar with this thing, and that would allow you to pop through your emails to this thing using the Wi-Fi connection, now then it would be becoming a very interesting toy. The only downside I think about it is that they have, well, 8 and 16 gigabytes. That's not much if you look at a device that is, you know, primarily built for watching video on. But still, it's a pretty interesting product. I'm very, very curious as to how it's going to sell. Because here in Europe, it's a whole different ballgame. We have a whole different story. We don't have the AT&T contracts on the iPhone. And we don't even have the iPhone yet. So what's the deal with that? I don't know. We'll take a look at that in our next chapter. The main beef I have with all this is, of course, the iPod Touch and the whole iPhone deal. In the US, everybody who bought an iPhone who was an early adopter, well, you stood in line and you paid $200 too much. Steve Jobs decided to drop the price by $200 just overnight. I mean, it's incredible. If you're an early adopter, I'm sorry. Well, that's what you get for standing in line. Come on. I mean, people go standing in line to buy a first generation product of an iPhone. They pay an immensely amount of money, $7.99 or $6.99. Come on, people, that's too much. They get saddled up with this 2-year contract from AT&T, and still they're like begging in front of the stores, please, Mr. Jobs, let me have my iPhone. Come on, you're the consumer. Apple should be chasing you. Here in Europe, we don't even have the iPhone yet, and it's going to be very interesting in Belgium because here we don't sell a phone and a contract together. You can't do that. You can buy a phone, you can buy a contract, but they cannot sell the two together. So that's going to be very interesting because what's the deal? In other countries like Holland, you can buy a very expensive phone together with a contract for a ridiculous amount of money because you can just buy a BlackBerry for 10 euros if you buy the 2-year contract. And that way the cell phone carrier actually carries part of the cost of the phone for you. Is it going to be the same here? I mean, are we going to pay even more for our iPhones because we don't have a carrier that is going to cover the price? Or is it a different ballgame? Can we just buy the iPhone and see what happens? I don't know. So we'll be waiting for that. Apple has to announce something because I'm not going to buy an iPod Touch or anything if I don't know what the deal with the iPhone is. But if I look at the prices, it's a very, very coy deal. I mean, they're very sly, these Apple marketing people. You go like, well, an iPod Touch, oh, that's kind of cool, $3.99. I might just buy that. I have the 8 GB version. But what if the iPhone comes in at $4.99? You go like, well, it's only 100 euros different. I might just, take the phone with it, and then you go on. And then you might just go for the 16 GB version of the iPhone. And before you know it, you're actually at the top of the price point and for buying your Apple product. So I'm very curious as to what's going to happen here in Europe, if they're going to tie it to a contract or not, and what the price is going to be. Until then, I'm not actually touching any of this new stuff. And first, I want to, of course, see people use it and use it myself and see what they say. So that about rounds it up for this week. I just want to say I'm not an Apple fanboy, and this is not an Apple promo. I think the products that they brought out are cool. I like the iPod Nano. I like the Touch. I have my reservations. But I do think that everything is hideously, hideously overpriced. I mean, you don't want to know what these things cost to manufacture. You don't want to know what you pay extra just because the Apple logo is on the back. Okay, they're good products, and I'm very pleased with the 2 iPods I've owned so far, but I still think it's all too a little expensive. But we'll see. So I'll keep you posted, and if anything comes out around this subject, you'll read it on the blog. This was KWTV Episode 1.